evening, Boris Johnson has resigned as Foreign Secretary less than 24 hours after the departure of Brexit Secretary David Davis. Both have left due to disagreement with the Prime Minister's new customs plan, approved last week. Theresa May now faces calls for resignation. Hanisha Sethi joins me now for more on the dramatic developments. Hanisha, what's the latest?
Well, it's been a very dramatic 24 hours with many twists and turns, and on Sunday we saw the resignation of the Brexit Secretary David Davis. Now, this followed the cabinet discussions at Chequers on Friday, where the cabinet agreed on a soft Brexit despite opposition from Brexiteers and the growing speculation of resignations on Friday. But today we've seen another major resignation, the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson stepping down. And in his resignation letter, he claimed that the Prime Minister was leading the UK into a semi-Brexit and attacking May's Brexit strategy. But together with David Davis, they both didn't agree with Theresa May's plan, saying it was too closely aligned with EU rules. And now we know that David Davis has been replaced by Dominic Raab, a prominent Leave campaigner in the 2016 referendum. But earlier, Theresa May defended her Brexit plan to MPs, and her words were greeted with jeering.
Mr. Speaker, this is the right Brexit, leaving the European Union on the 29th of March 2019. A complete end to free movement, taking back control of our borders. An end to the jurisdiction of the CJEU in the UK, restoring the supremacy of British courts. No more sending vast sums of money each year to the EU. Instead, a Brexit dividend to spend on domestic priorities like our long-term plan for the NHS. Flexibility on services where the UK is world leading. No hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland or between Northern Ireland and Great Britain.
Now there have also been calls from Labour for Theresa May to step down, and Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has mocked May's claim that she's restored cabinet responsibility, but he's also been asking rhetorical questions in Parliament, asking if this situation is even workable.
We have a crisis in government, 2 Secretaries of State have resigned, and still we're no clearer on what future relationship with our nearest neighbours and biggest partners will look like. Workers and businesses deserve better than this. The Chequers compromise took 2 years to reach and just 2 days to unravel. Mr. Speaker, how can anyone have faith in the Prime Minister getting a good deal with 27 European Union governments when she can't even broker a deal within her own cabinet? I want to be fair to the former Brexit Secretary and the former Foreign Secretary. I think they would have resigned on the spot on Friday, but they were faced with a very long walk, no phone, and due to government cuts, no bus service either.
Now, speaking about Theresa May's decision, David Davis has concerns about May's trade plans, the facilitated customs arrangements and the common rule book, which mirrors the EU bloc's rules and regulations. Now, he says that this would result in a hard border with Northern Ireland and have some jurisdiction on the UK as well. But in David Davis's letter addressing the Prime Minister, he said that the general direction of the policy would leave the UK in a weak negotiating position, and he also said that it would lead to further demands for concessions. But in Theresa May's reply, however, she stated that we've already made so much progress with Brexit plans and we only have 8 months to go now until the UK leaves the EU in March of next year. And earlier, Theresa May attended a private meeting with Conservative MPs this evening. But within the past hour, Chris Green, the Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Department for Transport, has also resigned, and he said that the direction the negotiations are going in suggested we would not really leave the EU. So it's clear here that the cabinet remain divided, and these resignations have also sparked the fear that MPs could trigger a no-confidence motion as well. So there's been speculation that they could reach the number needed, 48 MPs, to back a vote of no confidence, although the Prime Minister has said that she will fight this. In terms of where we are with the EU as well, we've heard from the European Council President Donald Tusk, who tweeted acknowledging these resignations, saying that politicians come and go, but the problems they've created remain. But the Prime Minister is now under pressure to retain her authority, and with a divided government, there are questions now over Theresa May's next moves.
Thank you, Hanisha. It's been a very busy day in Westminster. Well, Earlier, I spoke to Durham Law School professor Tom Brooks. He told me that everything that could be going wrong for the government over Brexit seems to be going wrong.
It's a very bad sign to have such senior figures in a government leave, and not just any old senior figures. You know, Boris Johnson was the face of the Vote Leave campaign. David Davis, the Brexit secretary, the politician in charge of overseeing the Brexit negotiations. And now with his departure, with months left, there will now be a new Secretary of State coming in who's not had a role in any of the talks so far for the last 2 years, will be the one to kind of come in at the very end and see us through the final stage. It's everything that could be going wrong seems to be going wrong.
All right, but couldn't these resignations provide an opportunity for the Prime Minister? Finally, the dissenting voices within her cabinet are walking away.
Well, the dissenting voices in her cabinet had been on side. They had been a part of her cabinet. She does not have much of any majority as a minority government to work with, all right? So the only way she's able to maintain power is through a power-sharing deal of sorts with the DUP. So to have some big beasts, some very influential members of parliament with her critics step away from the government and choose to vote against the deal that she's got, this means that if Theresa May wants to get this through, she's almost certainly going to have to rely on opposition MPs, and I think that is too tall in order to ask for. So I think it does weaken her considerably.
And lastly, if you could give me a quick answer on this, will Brussels accept what was agreed at Chequers?
No, I don't think that they will. I think that the customs plan she has is for Ireland is in particularly unacceptable, and I think that there'll be some issues around trade as well that they won't like either. But no, they won't agree this deal, and I don't think any good negotiator would expect them to agree the full deal. Both sides in any negotiation will be looking for concessions and changes, and it won't be a straight up yes from them in any circumstance, and certainly not this one, especially when they can see how weak she is, and by just pushing a little bit, they might get even more.
Well, for more on this story, I'm now joined by Professor John Ryan, Senior Partner at Brexit Partners. John, thanks very much for joining us. Were you surprised by these resignations?
No, not really. 2 weeks ago I was here and I was suggesting that her time was nearly up and that by the October Conservative Party conference that she would probably be gone because the Brexiteers were unhappy about what she's doing. Obviously, this has accelerated the timeline quite dramatically because of what's happened at Chequers. Now, the rats are leaving the ship.
Should she heed calls and resign in that case?
She's going to be forced to, one way or another. I mean, they're starting, 2 big beasts have resigned, 2 junior ministers have resigned, so we're going to see this drip, drip, drip. And, you know, you look at the 48 letters that will be going in at some stage. I think someone like Gove will be thinking about his position. At the moment, he's been a loyal member of the cabinet, but how long will that last?
Could she make all this work in her favour, though? Her opponents are leaving. She can turn it around, perhaps?
But she's losing confidence of the party, I think. The membership and the backbenchers. And I think now there are moves to unseat her. There is no question about that.
Theresa May insists that she can survive a leadership challenge. Do you think that's the case?
Not if it's Gove. She wouldn't be able to, I think, because he's been reaching out beyond the Brexiteer core into other parts of the party that she probably has lost because of lack of trust from those people. The Remainer faction who want a soft Brexit, I think, would be more confident maybe of Gove than Theresa May, and I think she's really struggling now with these 2 big resignations.
Her team appears to be saying that divided parties lose elections. In this case, are we inching towards another general election and potentially another Labour government now?
Well, I think that the first thing is that the Chief of Staff of Number 10 was in Parliament today briefing MPs before Davis resigned and later on Boris Johnson, they were still trying to calm down backbenchers about this, because over the weekend quite a number of them were unhappy about what happened at Chequers. I don't think that's going to work to try and keep the troops in line, but it's not necessarily true to think that there might be an election if she did go. That it would be a good idea, maybe the new leader going to the electorate to have a new election. A Labour government, we have to wait and see, because they would have to get their act together about what they would do in Brexit. One thing standing up at question time and saying that you would do better, but you would have to prove it to the electorate, generally for them to see something coherent coming out of the Labour Party, and that's not been forthcoming so far.
Say she does cling on to power. Do you think Brussels will agree to her plan?
No. I don't think so, because basically they've done something at that meeting to make steps towards getting a deal, but it's a starting point. It's something they can discuss, but there are elements in that in that deal, in that Brexit plan, that won't be acceptable to some countries within the European Union and won't be acceptable to Barnier, because the resolution of the Northern Ireland border is not really strong in that document.
Okay, it's a dangerous job making predictions now, given the situation, but what do you see happening next in the cabinet? You mentioned Michael Gove there. Is he the next to go, potentially?
Well, yeah, well, that would be very unusual to think when you look at what he said today. He's been supportive of the Prime Minister, he's been supportive of the Chequers statement, he's positioning himself as a loyal member of the government. What's going on at the sidelines with the 48 or more letters that could cause a leadership challenge is another thing, but he's setting himself up nicely to be in a very strong position in a way that Davis and Boris Johnson will be unable to do. So if she goes, Gove is really the front runner. I don't see either Davis or Johnson getting into the final two that would be presented to the final two MPs that would be presented to the general membership to vote on. So Gove is in a very strong position at the moment, and Theresa May's time is running out quite dramatically.
All right, we'll see if your predictions come true very